I thought I'd record another podcast today. I know it's not been long since I recorded the last one, so it's not like warranted, but I just felt like doing it. I'm home alone, and I always get a bit spooked when I'm home alone. So it's something to do, something to keep me occupied and busy. I normally like play music out loud and stuff, so there's a bit of background noise, but I've been doing that. Had a shower, made myself a mocktail. So I know is it 2? It's not even 2. But I tend to, mocktails, there's no alcohol in it, so I tend to have them quite early on in the day, rather than just as a replacement for alcohol. I have them like juice, because my mocktails basically are like Lucozade mixed with some peach juice mixed with some tonic or something. So it's nothing fancy really. It's not like a virgin mojito or something. It's just a bit juice with juice. So yeah, I'm having a mocktail. I'm recording this. But to be fair, I did used to start drinking quite early. I used to start drinking about 4 every day, and everyone thought that wasn't like the right time, because if I had a job, that it was very unlikely that it would finish at 4, and therefore I'd have got into a routine where I was drinking every day at 4 o'clock, and it wasn't sustainable because eventually I would have to get a job. So yeah, I do still sometimes start drinking at 4. Like, that's the point where I know I'm allowed to drink, because my family are very on it with my bad habits, so they always keep a careful eye on me. And yeah, I've tried to push it back to 5, because I think that's a more reasonable time, and you know, they're saying it's 5 o'clock somewhere, so like 5 o'clock is a reasonable time to start drinking. So I've tried to push it back to 5. Normally if I'm drinking at home, I'll start drinking at 5 these days. If I'm drinking out, it might be later. But I am accustomed to like 4 or 5 as a time to start drinking on a drinking day. But I'm working on it. I'm working on my drinking habits. I know I need to improve, because I went out last night, and because I'm on medication, my body doesn't tolerate alcohol the way it used to. It really doesn't like large quantities of alcohol anymore. It's not like I'm old, I'm only 25, but I think it is the medication I'm on, because they do say, you know, you shouldn't really drink, but then they sort of like look at you and they're like, you can if you want, but just be careful, don't drink too much, don't binge drink, whatever. I don't think I go out too often. I definitely don't go on nights out in town as much as I used to when I was younger, because I don't even know where is good to go in town anymore. Like, I feel quite old in that sense. And the last time I went out to anything remotely resembling a club, which happened to be Mosh, everyone there was so much younger than me, and I just felt so embarrassed. I was like, no, I'm not doing this again. So yeah, I prefer to stick to bars these days. Bars, pub, I'm fine. I think when you're younger, maybe, I don't know, I was going to say maybe you care less about like dancing and stuff, but also I used to look very different. I was slimmer. I think I was prettier. I think it's indisputable. I was slimmer and prettier. So you have more confidence. I had very little confidence at the time, but I had more confidence than I do now about like dancing and stuff in a club. So I don't know. But yeah, that leads me on to what I was planning to talk about today. I've just rambled on about mocktails and drinking times and clubs and stuff for a bit. But I was planning to talk about Baby today, because I was feeling braver. I did a post about it all the other day, and it made me feel a bit braver about talking about it. It was because whenever I sort of dip my toe into talking about identity disorders, I feel a bit better about it. And then if I leave it for ages, I feel like I'm shutting it all down again. So I thought I'd just, what's the saying, strike while the iron's hot, and talk about it a bit more in more detail, because this is called the Baby Diaries, this podcast, and I did intend to talk about baby more, but every time I came on to record some content, I got a bit scared or just started talking about something else. So I think I've covered alcoholism for now. Obviously there's a lot more to be said about it, but I don't think I'm the best person, because I'm still in the middle of my journey with it. I don't think I'm an alcoholic. I don't think I need to go to a meeting or anything. Sometimes I do stupid things when I'm drunk, like spend a lot of money. But I'm going to be having some CBT for that soon. So CBT is cognitive behavioural therapy, and it's to do with reversing habits and behaviours and challenging behaviours and all of that. So I'm going to have some to do with my spending habits, because my spending habits are poor and my money management is also poor. So I need a bit of help in that department. But yes, again, I'm diverting from what I was supposed to be talking about, which is Baby. So Baby was a persona I created when I was 12, because I was teased a little bit. I wasn't bullied, but I was teased. There were a few comments. People in the year above might ask me out as a joke, to make their friends laugh. People in my year would sometimes tease me or make comments. It just gets to you, it gets under your skin, and I decided that I wanted to be like the other girls in my year who were prettier and who the boys were trying to impress, or, you know, were friends with, rather than the girl who got teased because she was maybe a bit bigger, didn't wear makeup, didn't do my hair. And I do remember in the mornings before school, a couple of times I'd wash my hair the night before and it would be curly in the morning, and I remember thinking I looked quite pretty, but that was my personal opinion. I thought I looked pretty, and my family loved me regardless. They didn't think there was anything wrong with me, but to standard ideas of beauty, I did not conform. I did not look right, because the girls at the time were sort of maybe styling their hair or straightening their hair, or I don't know, and I was just letting it go natural, and I wasn't wearing makeup, and I was wearing a baggy jumper, and I was a bit overweight, and so I just decided I was going to crack down on myself and become prettier and become slimmer. That was the goal, and to be fair, I achieved it. Over the summer, I lost a lot of weight. I started losing weight in year 8, towards the end of year 8, but I was still wearing the baggy jumper, so I don't think you could really tell. But I lost most of it over the summer, and at the end of the summer I bought like the standard school uniform that everybody else was wearing, which was like this tight little white top from New Look and a little black mini skirt. And I went back after the summer and I looked like a different person. Like, if there was, I think in the yearbook at the end of year 9 they wanted to give an award for biggest transformation, and apparently there was discussion about, you know, me being the biggest transformation, but I think that is fair to say, like, I look like a different person. But I just didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I didn't acknowledge it. I was just like, I just strolled back into school. And some people asked me what had happened. I think kids aren't stupid, so I think some people worked out that I had an eating disorder or something, because to lose that much weight that quickly. But I didn't really acknowledge it. I just said I went on a bit of a diet and got on with my day. So, but it affected me psychologically so significantly, because everything became warped in my head. I felt like people liked me better. I felt like it was this unintentional, I've said this before in my book, but I felt like it was this unintentional social experiment and everyone liked me better. So obviously at 12 I was like, right, I've got to maintain this for the rest of my life now. I've got to be pretty, I've got to be thin, and that's like really important in my life, otherwise people aren't going to like me. And I've always been quite sensitive, and I think I've always thought like my family will love me no matter what, but the outside world won't. So that's how Baby was born, and I didn't sit there and think, oh, I'm going to come up with a character to live behind and a persona, and sort of perform for the next decade. I was just going through the motions. I was just doing what felt right. It was only on the psychiatric ward when I was 22 that I named this persona and character Baby, because I needed to create some distance between me, Caitlin, and this person who I wasn't, who I'd been being for so long. I needed to create a divide so that I could feel like myself again and discover who that was beyond makeup and, looking a certain way, acting a certain way, because it was also to do with acting a certain way. It wasn't just looking a certain way. Baby was quieter. She was less creative. She was less outspoken. She was like things that I thought a woman should be, like demure and laughed at boys' jokes. Even if she didn't find them funny, she had to laugh. Things like that. She'd never stand up for herself. She was a people pleaser. I'm not necessarily all those things, but I had to decide what was me and what was Baby, and sort of divide it up and figure out who I was really. And to figure all of that out at 22, it was quite difficult because it felt like I'd always been a girl and I was trying to become a woman very quickly. But there's this quote that I used in my book, and it's the laugh of the Medusa, and it's, we must kill the false woman who's preventing the live one from breathing. And that's how it always felt. There's so many quotes that sort of fit my identity disorder, and I scattered them throughout my two books, Paper Doll and Girl Behind the Mask. So I think I put some in Best They Ever Had as well, because I released a book called Best They Ever Had recently. It's a short book. I couldn't set the price for it, so it's quite expensive. It's like £12 for 30 pages, but I did make it available as an ebook when I figured out how to do that, and so it's like £3 as an ebook, I think, or something like that. But I understand why no one's bought it, because that's a ridiculous price for the content that you're given. But they wouldn't let me set the price on the website I use, so anyway. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there for today because I rambled on for longer than normal. I've talked about being on a psychiatric ward before. I think people find like psychosis and the whole hospitalisation and being sectioned and stuff, they find it more interesting than the identity disorder, because you see like horror films and stuff. It's not like in a documentary where they show you all the worst parts about it. It's quite mundane, really. But it wasn't pleasant. I didn't enjoy being in hospital. I lived for things like going out for leave, or when Mum would come to visit me and bring treats and stuff, or just seeing Mum, or just seeing whoever was coming to visit, because otherwise I'd be so bored. But yeah, I've got a lot to say on mental illness, and I think it's best if I do it in stages, so I'll leave it here for today on identity disorders. I've never been diagnosed with an identity disorder. It's all sort of like self-diagnosis, but for me there is no real other explanation for what happened, and I'm sure I saw somewhere that dissociative identity disorders can end in dissociative amnesia, and I feel like that's what I had at one point, because I didn't remember. I did remember everything, but it felt like those memories belonged to someone else, and I didn't recognise anyone, and I didn't recognise myself in pictures, I didn't recognise myself in the mirror, I didn't recognise my name, like all these things were unfamiliar to me. But again, I don't know how you get diagnosed with dissociative amnesia.